We are coming at you from St. Louis County, from my mother's residence actually. Heidi and I are here visiting, and we're going to talk about some specs and features in the Brooks Hyperion 2. I picked these up at a local running store in St. Louis County, Big River Running. Try to support local running stores when I can. So yeah, specs and features. Let's start from the bottom, and we'll start with the outsole. It's difficult to tell with this colorway. The shiny parts in the light are the midsole, the matte parts are the outsole. In fact, I think I am going to throw up a picture of another colorway so that you can kind of see where the outsole is. But yeah, there is a latticed outsole pattern under the forefoot, and there are a couple of small slabs of outsole rubber there in the heel, either side of the heel. And then the middle part, the midfoot, is kind of exposed midsole, and this is DNA Flash. We'll talk about that too. In the original version of the Hyperion Tempo, which came out in about 2019, I think, the midsole was terrible. It was hard and it was slick, and if there was any kind of moisture on the asphalt, it would just slip around. I think they improved that for the Hyperion, which is the second version. The Hyperion 2 is actually the third version, and also for the Hyperion Max. At least when I ran in the Hyperion Max in various weather situations, I had pretty good grip. So hopefully this feels like it's a little bit grippier rubber. We'll see when we take it on the run. I haven't run in these yet. Hopefully that will be better grip, and it's good strategic coverage. Not too much to take away from the flexibility of the shoe. Midsole, this is DNA Flash V2. DNA Flash is Brooks supercritical EVA. It is nitrogen infused. They came up with DNA Flash shortly after Skechers came up with Hyperburst, which is really the OG supercritical foam. I always kind of preferred Hyperburst, but I tried these on for a couple minutes in the store and even squeezing in hand. I'm hopeful that this DNA Flash V2 will be more similar to Hyperburst, have a little bit more of a dynamic feel to it, because I think in the original Hyperion Tempo and in the Hyperion, the DNA Flash was a little bit firm. It was okay in the Hyperion Max because there was a little bit more stack, so there was a little bit more room for the midsole to give a little bit, but still a very responsive foam. The upper is kind of a one-piece mesh. There's a little bit of structure around the heel cup. It's still fairly flexible, but it's not floppy. You can tell that there's a big elf shoe heel there to keep it off the Achilles, and that's pretty rigid. I didn't have any problems when I tried it on in the store. Usually these elf shoe heels don't bother me all that much. The laces are everyone's favorite serrated laces. They're not quite as aggressively serrated as you would find on the Metaspeed Race Series shoes or as on a Nike Alphafly or Vaporfly, but they do have that serrated feel so that they will hopefully stay tied, and they are nice and thin. They do run through the tongue there. The tongue is semi-gusseted on the medial side here. I didn't think it was gusseted before, that's why I'm editing this part afterwards, but you can kind of see it in the light there. But there is a pad right on the top of the tongue. It's a very thin, almost racing spike type tongue, but there is a pad on top of the tongue right here where my finger is right now that will keep the laces off the top of your feet. Insole is removable. We have, looks like your average run-of-the-mill Brooks 10-cent piece of sock liner there. So if you want to remove that and customize that, you can. And get in the light here. You can tell it's a pretty standard strobe last under there. I did weigh these shoes actually at my mother's house. She does have a digital food scale. So I pulled a Joanna and measured both shoes. And I came in with the left shoe at 200 grams and with the right shoe at 201 grams. And Brooks advertises on their website 201 grams. They say 201.3 or 7.1 ounces. So this is pretty much in line with that and pretty consistent. It is an 8mm drop. I think it is 34 millimeters in the heel, and that would be 26 millimeters in the forefoot. So that has come up from the Hyperion. And it is actually closer to the original Hyperion Max, which is kind of why I wanted these instead of the Hyperion Max 2, because I didn't want more weight and an added plate. I don't need yet another plated trainer. I kind of wanted something that was similar to the Hyperion Max, and hopefully this Hyperion 2 fits that bill. All right, I'm gonna go take them for a run. Okay, fit for the Brooks Hyperion 2. You guys are gonna have to deal with Con trying to get in the camera here. That's not a bad thing, I guess. Anyway, I feel like it is a good snug fit for a workout shoe. It does feel pretty snug through the midfoot. Those with a wider foot might have some challenges here, at least if your foot is wider through the midfoot. And I know my arch does kind of collapse down a little bit. There is a stability version of this shoe, the Brooks Hyperion 2 GTS. I usually don't use shoes with stability features though. Feels like there's plenty of room in the midfoot. It looks like there's plenty of room. It's not really wide, it just looks wide compared to the midfoot, the forefoot that is. I don't feel any movement or heel slip. The laces appear to stay tied. I think you should go true to size. I have a perfect thumb width worth of room, and there's enough structure near this toe bumper that it kind of keeps it off my toes. All right.
I did a couple of runs in the Hyperion 2 while I was in Missouri before heading back to North Carolina, and one of those runs was a broken progression run, which you can find out more about in week 3 of Project ATC 10K, but I have a good idea of which shoes I want to use for the shoe off. Okay, it's shoe off time, and we have the Brooks Hyperion 2 here. That's the star of the show today, and 7 shoes I'll be using for this comparison today. We have the Adidas Adizero Adios 8, not the Takumi Sen, not the Adios Pro, but the Adios 8. We have the Nike StreakFly. We have the Topo Cyclone 2. We have the Saucony Kinvara 14. We have the New Balance FuelCell Rebel V4. We have the Hoka Mach 6. And we have the Brooks Hyperion Max, which I am keen to test against the Hyperion 2. We are at Bailey Park for this shoe off, which is a place where I do a lot of my non-track road workouts. There's some flat but not perfectly flat roads around the park here. And there's some greenways too, but those can get a little bit hilly. We'll be sticking on the roads for this shoe off. And here's the Adios 8 with the Brooks Hyperion 2. All right, so the Adios 8. I love the Adios line of shoes, the non-pro line. I've been racing in them for years, using them for workouts. Raced a couple of good marathons in some of the earlier versions. Nowadays, as a traditional racing flat, it more gets used as a workout, a rep shoe for me. And side by side with the Hyperion 2, it really does feel a bit firmer, slappier, good grip. It's got that hashtag Continental rubber. But even with the 2 different foams, the Light Strike in the heel and the Light Strike Pro in the forefoot, I think the Hyperion 2 feels a little bit smoother with the continuous layer of DNA Flash V2. Neither of them are exactly soft. You don't feel awesome at easy paces, but I think the Hyperion 2 could do a little bit more training that's not just reps. This is the Nike StreakFly and the Brooks Hyperion 2. Oh. So the first thing I noticed once I laced these two up was the difference in lockdown. The StreakFly felt kind of sloppy compared to the Hyperion 2. I had to stop actually and secure it a little bit more. Once I got it dialed in, it felt better, but still doesn't feel as locked down as the Hyperion 2 does. Now, midsole experience. The StreakFly, as I've said in other comparisons, is very soft for a racing / workout shoe. And I would not use it as the 5K, 10K racer it is designed to be. I use it as a training shoe only, pretty much. If I were choosing between these two shoes to race a 5K or maybe a 10K in, I'd go with the Hyperion 2. Now, neither of them would I choose over like a plated racer, but I almost used the Hyperion 2 for that 5K in Queenie Park last week in Missouri. But since I was doing a review for the SC Pacer 2, I decided to stick with that first choice. But as a workout shoe, I would say the Hyperion 2 is probably what I would reach for before the StreakFly. Topo Cyclone 2 and Brooks Hyperion 2. Okay, the Topo Cyclone 2 is lower to the ground, has a lower stack height and lower drop. The upper is more comfortable to me. The foam is more energetic and it's lighter. But that's not to say it is 100% better than the Hyperion 2. The Hyperion 2 with that DNA Flash V2 supercritical foam has a bit of snap to it. There's just enough stiffness in it where if you are landing or like the proximal midfoot or closer to the rear foot, which I usually don't do, but I can, then rolling through that transition, you get a good snap from that foam. Whereas with the Topo, you're counting more on just the bounciness of that P-Max compound itself. It also depends on whether you find the anatomical toe box more comfortable or whether you want something a little bit more arrow shaped, you know, for turning corners. And I actually think on this wet tarmac, the Brooks might be providing a little bit better grip than the Topo. Kinvara 14 and Brooks Hyperion 2. So there's a reason the Kinvara has been so successful for so long, for 14, now 15 iterations. I don't have the 15th one yet, because it's a simple formula. Lightweight midsole, lightweight upper, low drop, no supercritical foams, no dual density midsoles, no plates, just plain EVA in a lightweight package with good geometry. No outsole to speak of. It works. The Hyperion 2 presents a little bit more. It's got a little bit better grip because there's actually an outsole. The lockdown is similar, although I did have to lock lace the Kinvara. I don't have to do that with the Hyperion. It fits well out of the box. I would say once you deform the DNA Flash 2 in the Hyperion, it snaps back a little bit more quickly than the Power Run regular EVA in the Kinvara. But for 95% of use case scenarios, these two are going to perform pretty similarly. Okay, here is the New Balance Rebel V4 and the Brooks Hyperion 2. Okay, the difference between the Rebel V4 and the Hyperion 2 is pretty stark. The Rebel V4 is definitely an everyday trainer. Lightweight as it is, it's an everyday trainer that you could pick up the pace in. The Hyperion 2 is lighter and it's meant for up-tempo work. You could do some easy miles in it, but it won't be as enjoyable. Definitely different use case scenarios with a little bit of overlap. But if I'm gonna do reps, Hyperion 2. If I'm gonna do an easy hour, Rebel V4. All right, friends, the Hoka Mach 6 and the Hyperion 2. All right, the Hoka Mach 6 has much more stack height than the Hyperion 2. More in the heel and much more in the forefoot because it's a lower drop, so it's a higher forefoot. And the supercritical foam that Hoka is using is a bit bouncier than the DNA Flash V2. The DNA Flash V2 is a lot closer to the Hoka supercritical foam than DNA Flash V1 was though. So the versatility goes to the Hoka Mach 6, but it's also more than 20% heavier than the Hyperion 2. Sort of like with the Rebel, if I'm gonna go out and do an hour on the road, pick up the pace a little bit, I'll go with the Mach 6. But if I'm gonna bang out reps or do a short tempo run, the Hyperion 2 would be my choice. Both of them have similar levels of lockdown though. They are both very secure. Okay, I saved this one for last because it was the one I was most curious about. This is the Brooks Hyperion Max, the first version, and the Brooks Hyperion 2. So I know I'm not the first to suggest this, that the Hyperion 2 is a possible replacement for the Hyperion Max for those who did not want the increased weight of the Hyperion Max 2 and the added plastic plate. And I'm here to say that I think it's gonna fill that role nicely. I can tell side by side that the Hyperion Max has just a touch more DNA Flash underneath it, especially in the midfoot. But it's just a touch, and I wouldn't be able to tell it if I wasn't running in them side by side. And I think what makes up for that is that the DNA Flash V2 in the Hyperion 2 is a little bit more dynamic, just has a little bit more to give, whatever percentage Brooks is saying. Maybe it's because I want to feel it that I feel it, but I do feel it. It's also a little bit lighter, but they're both very light. I think the upper on the Hyperion Max is a little bit more comfortable, but they are both secure, and the Hyperion 2 has better laces. Of course, that's an easy change. I don't know, long story short, I think if you are worried about the Hyperion Max getting ruined with its update, you would find some solace in the Hyperion 2. All right, that's it until the shoe talk. Okay, it's shoe talk time, and once again we are talking about the Brooks Hyperion 2. And at the time of this shoe talk, I have just under 35 miles in this shoe, or just about 55 kilometers, which I think is good for a workout shoe, primarily a fast day shoe. And that includes some base runs, including one a little over 90 minutes. It includes a workout with various paces from just a little faster than marathon pace down to 5K pace. I've thrown in some strides in this shoe, and I've done a shoe off compared with 7 other shoes. So let's get down to it. The experience of this shoe is going to be, as I have alluded, a pretty much fast day only shoe. You could use it as a daily trainer for your easy runs if you really like ground feel. And that is a relevant conversation because some people are lamenting the loss of ground feel, or think that trainers are getting a little bit too cushy these days. If you're one of those people, you might want to look at this shoe. Also, well, if you really like the Brooks Hyperion Max, which I'll talk about here in a minute, then definitely consider this shoe. So use case scenario, I would use this shoe primarily for reps on the road or on the track, or possibly tempo runs, anywhere from the 20 to 30 or 35 minute range, or tempo intervals. If you want to run fast but don't want to run in a plated trainer or a plated racer that day, if you don't like carbon plates or nylon plates, then look at this shoe. It is pretty flexible, but the nature of this supercritical EVA, the DNA Flash V2, is it's going to be pretty stiff and snappy. It's not going to be as flexible as something like the Kinvara 14, or certainly not like the Topo Cyclone 2. Most of the other shoes with which I compared this shoe were a little bit more flexible, but it is not inflexible. It will still move with your foot. I have a pretty rigid foot, so it's plenty flexible for me. The midsole is a big improvement over the previous Hyperion midsoles. There's a little bit more dynamic give there, but if you still like that firm response that you get from the Brooks Hyperion Max line, you're going to have it there. This shoe is going to be more versatile than something like the Adios 8 or the Nike StreakFly. In fact, I would probably use the Hyperion 2 for a 5K race before I would use either one of these. I don't know, maybe not this one. I still like this one. Just because this one I feel like you have a little bit more versatility with. And the grip isn't half bad. It's a lot better than the original Hyperion Tempo, which was like ice skates when there was any kind of moisture on the ground. Like it's raining today. I did this shoe off with wet tarmac, so it was good to get an actual grip test. I would say that the Topo Cyclone 2 might be a little bit more enjoyable for me personally to run in, but I also like that anatomical toe box. You also can't find the Topo Cyclone 2 everywhere, and it's a little bit more expensive. It's about $10 more expensive. Also, this Pebax midsole, you're gonna get a lot of grime inside those beads, and you're gonna do that quickly. Whereas the DNA Flash V2 midsole, I think, is gonna last for quite a while. You're certainly not gonna get a lot of grime in there. There's a little bit of creasing there, but that's because I've just literally run in these shoes. I would say the Kinvara 14 has probably given the Hyperion 2 a good run for its money as far as value. This is gonna be the cheapest of all the shoes here. Even the new Kinvara 15 is, I still think, $120 US, so it's gonna be cheaper, but you're also not gonna have that outsole. You got that little bit there and a little bit there, but here's my high wear area and it is worn down flat. Great shoe, great simple formula. The Hyperion 2 is $20 more expensive, and it might be more worth it as far as longevity. If you want a daily trainer, it's not gonna compete with the Rebel V4 or the Hoka Mach 6 in my mind. But I think if you're gonna be buying this, unless you want ground fuel, you're not gonna be looking at it as a daily trainer. You would be looking at it if you are a fan of this shoe and want to replace it. These two side by side, I really am no longer worried about Brooks ruining the Hyperion Max. I don't know, I haven't tried the Hyperion Max 2, but it doesn't look like a shoe that I need. I mean, do we need any? It's not about need, it's about want. But I think I feel a lot more comfortable retiring these when they come to their day now that I have this in the rotation. In fact, this shoe might even last a little bit longer. I mean, look at the midsole. Well, let me put them together. Look at the midsoles. They are pretty similar as far as the volume of the midsole. I really think this is the Hyperion Max replacement, and it is now called the Hyperion 2, and it is cheaper than the Hyperion Max was because this is $140, whereas the Hyperion Max started at $170 and its replacement is $180. So fear not, Brooks Hyperion Max fans, your Hyperion 2 is your new Hyperion Max. Aside from that, if you're not a fan of that shoe and you want an unplated shoe just for fast days, this is your guy. Otherwise, if you want to spend that $140 on something more versatile, look for the Hoka Mach 6 or maybe the Rebel V4. That's my shoe talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to run your LSD, which means like, subscribe, or share the video, and ding the bell for notifications. And I'll have another video in a couple days to follow up on week 3 of Project ATC 10K. Thanks, guys.